So this is Talkaoke pop-up talk show. The key thing about Talkaoke is it's kind of up to you to decide what you want to talk about, and we just find out what people have got to say. My name's Mikey. What's your name?
I'm Andy.
And
Yvonne.
Bob.
And
Patty.
Pat. So you're here early doors. We're just about to start. Come and get involved in this if you want to. We haven't got a subject yet. So we haven't got a subject yet, but it's kind of up to you to decide where you want to, what you want to talk about. It's Talkaoke pop-up talk show. So come and have a seat. We got Pat, we got Bob, we got Yvonne, and Andy. And what's your name?
Did you say take a seat then?
Yeah, take a seat. Yeah. No. Take a. Have a seat. Have a seat. What's your name? Jimmy. So we haven't really started yet, so we don't know what really. Come and have a seat. Come and get involved. We've got Andy. We've got Yvonne. We've got Bob and Pat and Jimmy. What's your name? Julie. Mikey. We haven't started yet, so we don't know what people want to talk about.
I have something to say.
Yeah. Have you got anything you want to kick this off with? Any thoughts, comments, observations?
About?
Well, look, I mean, we're here at the end of this demonstration about the.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be about that. It could be any related subject. But have you got anything to say about that?
I think the demonstration was extremely important to show this city that they don't need to lie down and let the tanks roll over them. That you can actually stand up, be counted, fight back. And this is a culmination of over 3 years.
Yeah.
It should have closed 3 years ago. Why hasn't it closed? Because of the campaign.
Right.
And this is generations united if you look at it, and gender united as well if you look at it, where we march together for something that is essential for this city.
Okay. What do other people feel about that? Do they feel that this has been a successful campaign? Do they feel that the generations are together? Is there a unity going on here, as Julie says? But
It's just getting it over to the media. Will they report it or distort everything? Because they haven't been telling the people the truth.
Right.
And you've only got to look at the newspapers, the Daily Mail, Daily Express, and all filthy papers. And even the Echo. They're not telling the truth.
Right.
And the BBC is one of the most guilty on the face of the planet. They're guilty of distorting everything. Look at the lies they told about Jeremy Corbyn. All the filth. They've even went back to when he was born. And they can get nothing on him. If they could find something on that Jeremy Corbyn, it would be world news.
Okay.
But they can't,
Okay, so there's a question of the media. You've got a hugely successful campaign. Is it getting the media attention? Are the media actually distorting the truth, especially when it comes to things like Jeremy Corbyn? What do other people feel? Do you trust the BBC? No.
I don't even watch BBC News anymore. I can't bear to watch it because there's been such a concerted campaign about Jeremy Corbyn, and I don't think they'll be happy till they see his head on a plate. So, quite frankly,
where do you get your news from if it's not from?
I look at Channel 4. I look at Channel 3.
Right.
I'm not a big social media person myself. I read the newspaper, and then I can apply my own critical, thoughts to that. But the media in this city did everything they could to destabilise this.
Right.
They carried a full-page advert, which must have cost hundreds of pounds. I want to know where that money came from. It's NHS money. To say, you don't need a demonstration. It's not going to close. We're just moving. Now, we know it was being moved. We don't like the move that they're doing. And that went in the Metro, that went in the Liverpool Echo, that was on BBC Radio Merseyside. I tried to ring in to correct the facts. I couldn't even get the phone answered to me.
And so, Bob, give us a final thought before you go. Okay, well, give us a final thought anyway.
I just, what it says, like, the Tory plan is always split up and divide. The NHS went years ago. I was stood in a chemist one night a few years ago, and a young man went in. They've got no love for the NHS because when he got his prescription form filled, it was about £15. And then he had another one, and that was £21. So they've been excluded from the NHS. how it was formed, what it was formed.
Yeah.
When the NHS was first formed, it was to look after people from the cradle to the grave.
Yeah.
And everything was free on. They had to make a charge in the end because it was getting a bit, you know. Because I was a seaman, and when I went away, when I come back, I didn't recognise people.
Okay.
They all had teeth and spectacles and different things. I found the greatest thing that ever happened to the working class in this country, the NHS.
All right, so the NHS, the greatest thing that happened, says Bob, the greatest thing that happened to the working class in this country, is the NHS in spirit surviving? Do we feel optimistic about it? Is it something that we feel like, you know, it's kind of being chipped away, or what do people think about the long-term future?
Chipped away.
Blown away. We've got a new face. What's your name? Ruth, we've got Julie, we've got Jimmy, we've got Pat, we've got Bob, we've got Andy, and Yvonne and Mikey. At the moment, I guess there's a couple of subjects on the table. One is the question of the NHS, and you know, what are people's visions of that? How they see it surviving? Do we need to have things like prescription charges? Bob kind of implied, yeah, we do. The other thing is, do we trust the media in reporting these issues? Do we actually feel that they're giving us, or giving the right issues the oxygen and publicity? So there's a couple of any thoughts on this side, Andy?
I'm kind of interested in going back to that sort of media question, and where the sort of people creating their own stories is kind of a way of combating that, and also sort of specifically about Liverpool. I guess the lady opposite me earlier on was kind of, I suppose, talking about generations of people that have kind of fought for this sort of thing. Is Liverpool the sort of place that's capable of telling its own story? Could it be sort of more independent than kind of
Could you have
other places?
your own independent Liverpool media? That's what you're saying. I mean, what do people think? Do you need the BBC? Do you need these big newspapers, or could you actually do it? I mean, that's kind of what we do here at Talkaoke. People create their own media, but is it possible? Is it kind of plausible for Liverpool?
I think Liverpool could, but I think it needs to come with people with money, you see. So what we would say is the trade unions should be getting together, and there should be a channel on the television for trade unionists, for socialists to express their views, because they are excluded. They are excluded from the media, absolutely. So what do? We produce leaflets. What do? We go out on the street. I'm in Merseyside Pensioners Association. We regularly have a stall in the town centre. We pick up issues like free school meals, social care. We take petitions, we speak to people, and that's how we get our message across, because we do not have the finances, we do not have the power of the established media.
So in the end it's down to money, actually.
Well, I think it's about the BBC and its total lack of balance in terms of what is going on for ordinary people in this country. You do not hear their story, and that must come from above. It's the establishment. Okay, so what I would say is, where is the balance on question time? Where is the balance on any questions, any answer? You know, any answers is great. You can hear all sorts of really good stuff on Radio 4. But you put on that on that radio in the morning, 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock. Who do you get on? Tony Blair was on the other day, and what is he? Who is he? He should be in jail. And his wife has bought all sorts of contracts up, which are privatised contracts within the NHS.
Really?
Yeah, Sherry. You know, these ones where, you know, the loads of people need the hip replacement or the cataracts, the easy stuff. So who's going to do cancer? Who's going to take that? Not Sherry Blair. No money to be made in it. And this NHS has been slowly privatised by stealth. And the BBC and our media are not reporting it. We do not get that narrative.
Okay, so, I mean, come and have a seat on the table of chat.
There's a really important rally about saving the Liverpool Women's Hospital.
That's what we're talking about. This is like the fringe. This is like the fringe discussion. Hopefully, we're not. Hopefully, we're not interrupting that, because we've moved far away enough. But I guess we're talking about. There's two questions. There's a question about the BBC and these public media channels. Are they actually? are they actually reporting these things about the privatisation by stealth of the NHS? But then there's also, I guess, this question about the establishment that Julie raised, and you know, is there a way to actually? There seems to be a suggestion that we could actually force the BBC to cover this, or somehow persuade the BBC to actually.
I thought about forcing the BBC. Suppose you have a general election now and Jeremy Corbyn does win.
Yeah.
I hope he does.
Yeah.
And he wants to carry out these policies of true socialism and get shut of these parasites.
Yeah.
Then the crunch will come.
Yeah.
Unless he has the support of all the people
Yeah.
to back him up, they will do what they done to Chile and Alandi.
Yeah.
They killed that man.
Right.
And make no mistake about the ruling class.
You think they will actually?
They've done it in Peterloo. They've done it in my own country, in Ireland.
Right.
They denied the people in Ballymurphy where they went in there and butchered people.
Right.
That was not reported on the TV.
Yeah.
But by BBC, it was all hidden, secret organisations.
Right.
And make no mistake about the ruling class in this country. I have no illusions about what they would do.
Okay,
They've done it in the past by exploiting people, divided India, the whole lot. Okay. And they use, where did they go for the recruitment? Belfast and the poor areas and the whole lot.
Yeah.
And I hope Jeremy Corbyn wins, but unless he has the support of the millions of people that will go out and demonstrate, and even if they have to take armed up to defend them.
Sorry.
It might come to that, to take up an armed struggle.
Yeah.
Because you'll get nowhere. As old Chairman Mao said, political power goes out the barrel of a gun.
Okay. What do other people feel about that? Is it going to be that bad? Will Jeremy Corbyn be in fear of his life if he gets elected?
Now.
Yeah.
I'm in fear of his life now. Yeah. The media are completely biased towards Corbyn, completely biased towards the Labour Party. It's disturbing that on a lot of the programmes that they broadcast, they don't even have a Labour candidate there. They go straight to a Tory.
Right.
I think it's an absolute disgrace. But I think that people are.
Yeah. So you think that's actually realistic?
I absolutely agree. I think. I think it could be. I think things could get really.
Okay,
bad.
but what about also? There's this idea: if Corbyn does get in and he survives, will he be able to actually have any power over the BBC and be able to change that media landscape and get? Come and have a seat on the table of chat. What do you think about the BBC? Do you trust them?
Sorry?
Do you trust the BBC? What's on the news?
Generally in Wales I do, but I don't know about UK. Well.
Okay. We've got. Let me get we've got Pat, we've got Jimmy, what's your name?
Lisa.
Lisa, we've got Andy and Yvonne, and we didn't get your name over here.
John.
John and Shan.
Shan.
And we're sort of there's a couple of things. One is about the establishment, and are we actually getting the real truth about people like Jeremy Corbyn? Pat says he should be in fear of his life because he's standing up for working class people, and people like that in the past have just been killed.
Haven't people realise yet that what we're seeing on TV is the impressions of other people? It's been cut, it's been edited, the photographs that are displayed behind the newsreaders' heads are often carefully chosen. So we're not seeing news as it's being made, we're seeing news that's coming through the filter of other people's opinions.
Okay. So in that sense, you think you have to sort of, in a way, look at the news with a filter, in a way, with that kind of...
I've stopped reading a lot of this of newspapers, so I trust some newspapers, not implicitly, but I will go for my information, and the BBC is one of the places that I'll go for, not to double check, but to look at what the opinion is.
So, kind of watch the BBC, but take it with a pinch of salt.
I don't trust them at all. I don't believe most of what the mainstream media shows anymore, because they've been proven time and time again to be wrong, but not only wrong, deliberately obtuse, basically.
Okay, so it's not just an accident that they get their facts wrong. We've got another new face to say. What's your name?
Gordon Waring, Liverpool.
Gordon, we've got Andy, we've got Yvonne, John. And Shan and Pat and Jimmy and Lisa and Mikey. You've been listening, I suppose. So we've been talking about. I mean, are things going to improve if Corbyn does, if and when he does get elected? Will there be a more balanced media? Will the BBC still be the same? What do people think?
Well, he'll be under greater attack then, won't he?
You think he'll be worse actually if he gets elected?
Well, I don't think he'll be worse. I think he'll be better. But I think
Yeah.
a lot of people will see it,
Yeah.
and they'll think,
Yeah.
look, I came through the miners' strike, okay?
Yeah.
And you would meet people every day who thought that Arthur Scargill had two horns, a little fork in his hand and a tail.
Right.
And they thought that he was evil incarnate. They'd never met the man. They'd never
Right.
had the opportunity to speak to him.
Yeah.
They didn't know what he stood for, but, the sun
Sort
said.
of trial by media
Yeah.
kind of thing. Okay, so it happened to Arthur Scargill. It will happen to Jeremy Corbyn. John, have you got a view on this?
Well, I'm from abroad, so it's difficult for me.
Where are you from?
I'm from the Netherlands. I've
Okay. What's the view of Jeremy Corbyn from the Netherlands?
I don't know if they take him very seriously.
Yeah.
They make a cartoon out of him, I think, a bit.
They think he's a bit of a little bit of a joke. He's not a serious contender for.
No. And of course, well, there are also divisions within the Labour Party.
Yeah.
So it's not only the Tories that are divided, but also Labour is divided. So I think there's a huge crisis within English democracy right now. So
Is there in Holland or in the Netherlands? Is there a trust in the media? Do people trust their media channels?
no, well, there are more people who have doubts about the media. But I find this a very difficult topic to discuss because, well, I've been touring all over the UK now, and everywhere I come, people say the BBC is biased, BBC doesn't report what is happening. I was in Scotland, and the people who want independence there, they were complaining about the BBC. They were calling it a biased corporation or something, and so nobody is happy with the BBC. And in a way, maybe that's good then. Because, well, as a broadcaster, you can't broadcast everything people want to hear. Maybe.
Right. Okay. So are they just kind of giving it? Everyone the kind of the. Are they upsetting everyone? That's what John said. Gordon, have you got a view on this?
Well, for starters, me vote's damaged. No one's denying anyone the right to have a say. The problem is, socialists, the working class and the left are not allowed a voice. The media on the whole is either liberal or to the right. Right. The Mail, the Sun, all your newspapers, all your news channels, whoever, News International, control just about everything. I don't think it's just the fault of the BBC, but the thing is, there needs to be more balance. There's only one side being told it's Corbyn's bad. The other side of the story's not being told.
Okay. So, I mean, is the kind of private media and the corporate media swaying what the BBC's doing? Come and have a seat, come and get involved if you want to. Have you got a final thought? No, maybe not. Come on. Yeah.
When Theresa May was asked would she press the bomb?
Yeah.
I'd like to ask her, will be in the security of her atom-proof shelter.
Right. So, I mean, okay, well, we can put that out there to Theresa May. If you're listening, please reply on that one. But, I mean, what do people think? I mean, there's a question about, I guess you're raising the question about the stance towards nuclear weapons as a whole. But, I mean...
Waste of money.
What's that?
Completely. You speak to a lot of people in the armed forces, the Royal Navy. They don't see any purpose in nuclear weapons. They want defence. No one's saying we don't need defence, but nuclear weapons, it's like once one of them bombs go and all the rest go, that's it. There's not going to be a planet left.
It's not just the weapons, it's the nuclear power plants that they want to build everywhere. You've got other parts of Europe which are completely, banned obsolete nuclear energy, and they're focusing on renewables, and we want to put up one, I think in Anglesey, another reactor, which is, Hinkley is pretty much a disaster. They've already got reports that people living within a certain vicinity, even of decommissioned ones, are in like a higher risk bracket for cancer, and this government doesn't have no concern for public health at all. It's profit all the way for them.
Okay. Okay, so we've got the nuclear question has come up, but it seemed, I don't know that was reported in a way where it was kind of as if Jeremy Corbyn wasn't kind of strong enough or kind of man enough to press a button like Theresa May.
Speak to Veterans for Peace. And Labour left veterans, they'll tell you a thing or two.
Hang on a sec, come and have a seat on the table of chat. This is Talkaoke. Do you trust the BBC? What, do you trust? Okay. Yeah. Do you trust the BBC?
Why are they scared of Jerry McCorbyn? You know, you got John Pilger, one of the finest journalists in the world.
Yeah.
And when he does programmes, he always put it on at midnight or something.
Yeah.
And he's trusted, even before when the old Soviet Union, he was trusted there and trusted. Look at all the filth they talk about North Korea.
Yeah.
You know, now.
Do you not think that any of that is true, what they say about North Korea?
No, because if America has all these weapons, those countries are right to defend themselves. I disagree a lot with Putin, but he's surrounded by NATO, and NATO is an armed force, and all they want is a world war.
Okay.
The thing, and America wants a war, but they get somebody else to do the dirty work. Look at Orgrave, the mine workers.
Yeah.
No country in the world done what they've done to them mine workers. They barricade them right round. Even the old Soviet Union didn't do it. You weren't allowed to leave your house, the whole lot. And the police, they were clapping their hands. He wanted the strike to go on forever. They were making a fortune. The police were making a fortune out of it, buying homes abroad.
Let me just get a final thought from John.
And the thing is, it'll come one day. If we don't get it through the ballot box, it'll come. When it's properly organised, it might take a long time. But I think in the final analysis, the only way to get shut of this rotten capitalist system and British imperialism is by an armed struggle. But that'll take a long time.
Okay, that's quite a big one there. So what do people think? If we can't do it by the ballot box, should there be some kind of armed struggle? Hang on a sec, let me just get a final thought from John. John, what's your final thought?
About what?
Well, I mean, you're walking away, you've got a few people say, is there anything that surprised you that you're going to go away kind of remembering?
Well, I think I'm more of a moderate person. And I always hear politicians talk about what they are going to do and what they promise for the future. And maybe the promises are too big sometimes. And people should be told that they can't realize everything. And they're always campaigning, but then the truth comes and they find out that things are not as they said it would be. And they are disappointed, and they're disappointed in democracy. I think that's the problem. People should be told that they can't, there are no miracles in life. And they should be realistic, I think, too. And you can have a dream, but you have to be realistic too.
Okay, so don't necessarily expect the politicians' promises to come true because of reality. We've got a couple of new faces to the table. Hang on a second, Sean, let's find out.
I'm going to say this, after the miners' strike, more people voted Tory. And I mean, that was shocking. It was that's statistically true. We went through a year of the miners' strike. We demonstrated how this country was going to the dogs under Margaret Thatcher's management. And yet still more people voted for her. And I think sometimes we have to not accept, because I will never accept it, but the great British public, they did it to us on Brexit, they do it to us on other things. When they want to kick us up the arse, they kick us up the arse.
Okay, so now it's the public that onus is on. We don't trust the public. Hang on a sec, Lisa, let me just get some names. So we've got Sean, what's your name? What's your name?
Jean.
Jean. And what's her name?
Siobhan.
Siobhan. Thanks, John. And we got Pat and Bob and Lisa and Gordon, that's right, and Yvonne and Mikey. Man, we're sort of talking about really politics and how to solve it. Do we trust the whole electoral system? Do we actually trust the public to vote for the right things? Is the system kind of flawed, as Pat is suggesting?
Trust nobody, can you? Because they all tell lies.
Yeah.
You know, if they can't get on at their own party, well, what chance have we got?
I mean, is there a way to make this political system better? Because it's obviously flawed. Nobody seems to like it. Do you think there's a better way of doing it?
A miracle we need, don't we?
You think a miracle would...
I think so, yeah.
Well, how would that miracle sort of take shape?
You have to go to Lourdes, you reckon, don't you?
Yeah. I think the first act of Parliament, that Jeremy Corbyn should do is abolish the House of Frauds. Sorry, I meant the House of Lords. This unelected, this is not a democracy when we have loads of unelected people and they're running the country and our vote means nothing.
Okay.
Over 800 of them now.
800 lords. Okay, so abolish the House of Lords. But that's one way that the democracy... It seems that our democracy is flawed in so many ways, and that's been the sort of, I think. It's not a democracy at all.
It doesn't feel like a democracy at all. We never voted for this. I don't know anyone who did. And the fact that she's there, she's actually leading the country at the moment. When you look back, the majority of the country vote Labour, but we're in a system which means that depending on which you can have 1 millionaire, can't you, in a constituency with a few other billionaires. That's classed as a constituency. It's completely the way it's worked. Settles up for fail.
How would you kind of improve democracy? We've had for Bob.
I don't know. I think it should go from a vote by vote basis, not on constituencies. It should go on the amount of votes. Who actually wins?
The total amount of votes. Come and have a seat for a minute. This is Talkaoke. You don't have to say anything if you don't want. One minute. At the moment we're talking about, is our democracy flawed? And how do we change it? How do we make it better? Is that thumbs up saying yes, it is flawed? That's good. Andy,
I was just also, I mean, it's obviously, it is flawed, and it's a system that doesn't work for many people, but there are examples of people doing things all the time that are kind of like, show that there's an alternative. I was just wondering if, are there sort of particular examples in Liverpool? Is there like a history of kind of like people-led activity? Or
just before I ask that, I'm going to come to you. I mean, what are you? You're obviously thinking about something. What? You're not from Liverpool. Where are you from?
I'm from Bradford. So, like in Bradford, there's kind of a long history of kind of people doing their own kind of stuff and like making things happen in the cracks. It's a city that kind of like obviously capitalism's failed in numerous ways, but in that kind of like space, people have made something else happen. So like things like the 1 in 12 club in Bradford, which was set up by the Claimants Union in the early 80s as a kind of like social club for people that were on the dole.
So kind of unemployed union.
Yeah, like unemployed people coming together, turning the rhetoric of the Thatcher rhetoric on its head. So that's why they were called the 1 in 12 club, actually, because the media portrayal at that time was that 1 in 12 people that were claiming benefits were doing so fraudulently, so they became the 1 in 12 club. So I'm just thinking about, I guess like examples of people, not just kind of pointing out the problems that exist, but actually doing something about it and creating the alternative.
Okay, is there a space in the city of Liverpool for people to organise it themselves? Could you somehow like bypass the normal channels? That's what Andy says. Are you off, Gordon? Do you want?
I've just got to see if my dad's okay.
All right, give us a final thought.
Yeah, I'll be back in a minute.
Okay. Back in a minute. That's a good final thought. So that's what we're talking about here. Is it up to people really just to do it themselves instead of like moaning about all the things that are wrong? Is it down to us to take the initiative somehow?
You just can't.
Yeah.
Where would you go?
Yeah.
Who listens to you?
Okay. So you think that people are being deliberately undermined?
Taking loads of our rights away. We're not able to. People want to. I know a lot of people who want like alternative kinds of communities, and we haven't even got the facilities available to grow our own food. I know a lot of people who are happy to completely segregate themselves away from this current state in this country, and they've got no option to do it. They took all the rights. You're not even allowed to travel anymore, are you? Or live in a bus if you wanted to. There's all these kinds of things in place. So everything works to.
So it's about, in a way, they're trying to shut down those alternative ways of life.
If you speak out, you'll get arrested. The police will come in the night and just take you away. There's a woman in Surrey who's just been put in a mental hospital because she was complaining about 5G getting set up. They just come and they can't assess a mentally ill person, but if you speak of anything against the government, they'll come in the night, they'll put ASBO, and even put your kids in care while they assess whether you're a government threat.
Let me get final thought from you. Have you got final thought? No? Come and have a seat. What do people think? Is it the case that if people speak out, they'll get arrested? What's your name, sorry?
Rachel.
Yeah. Rachel's saying that you can't speak out because you'll get arrested. Do other people agree with that?
I don't know about that. It's just there have been people that have been arrested over political reasons, over demonstration stuff, people involved with animal rights and stuff like that. Get very harsh sentences. You can knock a kid over, you'll be out in 12 months.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So people are getting arrested if they've got alternative views. So basically the idea is the alternative being stopped? Is it actually being curtailed? Come and have a seat on the table of chat. Is there an alternative? That's what we're talking about at the moment. Give us a couple of minutes. We have got Yvonne, we've got Shana, are you going? Give us a final thought.
People should be registering to vote. We have people who are disappearing off the voter register.
But does it actually work?
That's the point, isn't it? If you've got alternatives and you want to change things, don't moan if you haven't participated. To participate, you have to use your vote. And I think that's when you start to see the power of people participating. But you know, just sitting there down the pub and saying, oh, it's pointless me going to vote because nothing's going to happen, nothing will happen.
Okay, so I guess you can have the alternative thing and vote as well. You can do both, I suppose.
Everybody should vote.
Okay,
Everybody should vote.
Okay, I think that's everyone's agreed on that.
And it should be made easier for people to vote. The barriers that have been put up for people to be registered and to vote has been really, really difficult. So, and we, you know, I work all around the world doing democracy support for the European Parliament in fragile democracies, and in those places, people really value their vote.
Well, you know, at the moment, what we're talking about and the sort of subjects on the table has been, is our democracy flawed? Because most of the people here in Liverpool feel that our democracy is badly flawed in a number of ways. They feel that the views are not getting out there, that there's somehow, you know, the elites and the establishment control decision making. There's all sorts of reasons why people have been saying democracy is flawed. Is our democracy a fragile democracy? Does it work? You were going to say something, Yvonne.
I was just thinking about people voting for the referendum and feeling like, I don't know whether this and solutions and things, and yes, no, just didn't seem like there was enough.
Right.
Like.
So it's not. It
was a bit too simple, And when really, why were you voting yes or no? Or you know, it was those bits of information I think that would have been more useful than the vote that we did get.
Yeah, okay.
Can I just follow on from that? We need citizenship education, and we don't just need it in schools, we need it with significant others who are working with young people. You know, we haven't got a youth service anymore, which means that vulnerable young people don't have that person who they might trust, because they're not necessarily going to, you know, if they're disconnected from school and education. You know, as a teenager, I didn't want to listen to my parents, but there were significant others in my life who were involved in the youth service, and I think that we need to have a proper youth service again, and we need to have proper citizenship education, and that needs to be both in school but also outside in informal education. And I think if people understand, I mean, I've met all kinds of young people who, when the referendum happened, at their school they had mock referenda and they did all the research and they knew about the EU. And so I've heard people saying, well, 16 and 17-year-olds don't know enough, they're not mature enough to vote. But can I say, those young people knew more than their parents and grandparents about the EU. And it is horrendous that our government won't give 16 and 17-year-olds the vote. And horrendous, actually, that they were shut out of the process in the referendum when it's their lives that will be most impacted. So that's really poor democracy. Along with the EU 27 citizens who are not allowed to vote. They live, work in this country, they pay into the tax economy, they weren't allowed to vote. And all the British people who are living in the EU 27 countries also not allowed to vote. That's really poor democracy when you say that those people are not allowed to vote.
Hang on a second, Yvonne, let me just spread it around to the other, but thank you. We didn't get your name.
I'm Julie Ward. I'm a member of the European Parliament, and I won a new seat back for Labour in 2014 because I stood against Nick Griffin and I kicked him out. Right.
I think you get a round of applause for that. Well, thank you, Julie, and come back later if you want to. So, I guess, I mean,
what is democracy?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
You know, in my own country and the six counties, right? The people there. And my mother, they say we weren't allowed to have a vote.
Right.
And they went through the ballot, but everything at all, and asked and begged and begged. And what did they get when they went down? They got shot, some of them, and got beat up when they demanded a vote. There was apartheid in the six counties, worse than it was in South Africa, and that is a fact.
I mean,
but the thing is, we only asked.
What about now, though?
You have to ask yourself, who owns the media? Who controls it? Rupert Murdoch. And who controls the BBC? Who are these filthy so-called neoliberals and all that. That, you know, that they're trying to tell us the only working class that we're thick and stupid, and they'll put their ideas onto people, and you can understand why people get so brainwashed with the television. The 99% of it is a load of garbage.
Okay, it's all a load of garbage.
Teaching the kids politics in school. I've got friends my age, and who don't even know the difference between Labour and Conservative. They haven't got a clue because they're not even teaching the kids in school. They get no education. They've got no one to speak to about it. They haven't got a clue. I've never known kids so disillusioned with politics.
In school nowadays, if they're not conform and they're not like obedient, if a child even wants to express herself through, they will just go after that child and put the child down, refuse to teach it.
Is That's that pressure to conform also? Does that also sort of fit into politics as well? In that you have to you
will do as you're told.
Right. Okay.
No matter what, it's not if you're doing anything wrong. It's you're undermining the teacher's authority.
Okay. So in a way, is the way that school is taught. I mean, what do people think about on this side of the table?
Fantastic teachers here. Amazing teachers.
Okay.
When Pat was on just before, the word gerrymandering emerged from Ireland, where like the mayor of Derry would have 50 votes, and Catholics had no votes at all. That was stitched up, and that was under a democratic so-called society, which didn't exist anywhere. Any of these rights that were obtained, people had to fight for them. The Tall Puddle martyrs were deported. Women had a historical lay down their lives to force-fed because they wished to have a vote. And voting's been denied to certain classes of people all through the history of this country.
Okay, but now I guess we're in a sort of rosier time where everyone technically can vote, but still it's not working. So, I mean, my question is what needs to be done now? Okay, we know the history, we know about the Tall Puddle martyrs, about the gerrymandering and all these things, but how do we move forward and how do we actually make the democracy better?
Have a constitution.
Electoral boundaries. Electoral boundaries issues. What they've done is they've changed electoral boundaries so it works more in the favour of the Conservatives.
Okay. So
that's not democratic, is it? We're still one of the best democracies in the world, but it doesn't mean we can't improve it.
Okay. Are we one of the best democracies in the world? Gordon says yes. Okay. Let's ask this man. Do you think Britain is one of the best democracies in the world? Is Britain one of the best democracies in the world, or are we flawed politically? Come and get involved. What do you think on this side? What do you think on this side? Gordon said Britain's one of the best democracies in the world. Adding to that we need to improve it still, Gordon. But this is Gordon here. But are we one of the best, or are we kind of in the middle? Are we at the bottom? What do people think around the table?
We're not anymore.
Right.
We led the world in socialism. We took it over. The NHS after the last World War, all right, there was empathy because people would be shot and war and all the rest of it. What happens now, we haven't had a war, so the people on the streets, like they say, the NHS, and I know I've experienced in other countries, knowing what their health systems are like, knowing what things. I was with a British guy in America, and he got shot. They wouldn't treat him because he never had insurance. It was a Saturday night, a Friday night, and he couldn't check to see if he had insurance. And only his buddies got him onto a plane and got him back to the UK. They sent him back to the UK with a bullet in him.
Right.
Jesus Christ! Could you imagine having something like that?
Okay, so I mean that's about healthcare, but what about the question of democracy? How are these two things linked?
I've got to say, I don't know if I fully understand how the system works in terms of each area getting a person who's elected, and then there being numbers of people in London who then get counted again. So it's not. This is a question. Everybody votes for a party. It's not like those are added up and then the most votes wins. That's not how it works, is it? So could it work like that?
Would it work better if it was just where people would vote for a party and we'd add up all the votes across the country? Would that work better? You think so?
I think it'd work well better because the majority of the country vote Labour.
Right.
So in that way, you know, when you look at the graphs, they even tried on the BBC, they were making out that it was a terrible result for Jeremy Corbyn. And they're literally telling you that while the graph behind them is completely contradicting what they say. And they've got that much power over people now, the mainstream media. They've got the power to make people look at something, tell them something different, and they believe it. And we'll never have a fair democracy until we have a fair media, ever.
Okay. So, I mean, in a way, you know, we've been, I guess the whole kind of theme today that's emerged has been the question about how democracy and media and also health and education, how they all link into each other. And it's not just one makes the other, but they sort of...
Right, a little girl goes for tests, urgent test needing for food allergies or elderly. Her elderly refuse to do the food allergies because it makes the child late for school, being allergic also to the cold. And they won't do the tests on the children. There's hundreds and thousands of children who now been told to go and get their tests at the Spire Clinic, which starts at £4,000 a go. The NHS is meant to be free. It's meant to be free, especially to the children. The children are getting neglected because the schools have gone into the NHS trying really massively medicate the children to get them into school on time. It's all the physically handicapped children who are getting affected by it, and the parents getting threatened with court and fixed penalties because nobody cares about the physically handicapped children who are all expected to go to mainstream school.
It's like no one cares about the disabled.
Nobody cares about
the disabled. Full
So,
stop.
I mean,
that's how it started in Nazi Germany.
Is it? I mean, do people feel there's a lack of care? Is it? How does this happen? I mean,
Thatcher said there's no such thing as society.
Yeah.
It's every man for himself. You know, it became dog eat dog. That became I'm alright Jack.
Yeah.
That sort of mentality. It's been shoved down people's throats for the past 30 odd years.
And do you think that has had an effect?
Of course it has. A huge effect.
Okay. I mean, what do people think? Has Thatcher saying there's no such thing as society, this individualist approach, has it actually changed society and made it more almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy?
That longer be an individual, as long as you consider others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. This side of the table, what do you think?
I'm just trying to think about like why. So we've got this system. Why does it work in that way? Who decided that? It sort of feels like. Could you just have an independent person rethink that system, or maybe vote like with Brexit? I feel like what there should have been is a few different points that we voted on in terms of immigration and free movement, and I don't know what the Well,
all right. So instead of just voting for or against European Union, you could actually kind of tick the things about the European Union that you liked and what you didn't like, rather than. Break it down a little bit. Did it have to be just a basic? That's a bit of a change of subject. I don't know what people want to, what you think about this. We're talking about Yvonne over here is saying that rather than just having leave or remain, should it have been more nuanced, and should it be about all the different issues about immigration, about economy, about all these other things about democracy.
Tories again, they're pretending. Theresa May, the first thing she said yesterday was she went in with the whole immigration thing, and if people actually believe that if we leave the EU we'll have less immigration, but if that's the case, why were they in Jamaica looking for nurses to come to our country to replace the jobs of the European people whose jobs are now at threat now? And their actually aim is deregulation. It's got nothing to do with immigration. They're going to deregulate the environment, the food, and it's just going to be a corporate free-for-all, and that's exactly what's going to happen under the Tories.
So
with the Chinese people there was a lot of Chinese people living in this country.
Yeah.
And I was a merchant seaman.
Yeah.
And those Chinamen went to sea, and British ships all through the war, and then they were just deported. No thanks, nothing.
Right.
Why they just they said they were undesirable aliens or something like this.
Right.
They went through the records.
When was this?
It was after the war, of course, when the war was over.
So they
it must be about 20 years ago, I think, but I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
But definitely, because I had a couple of friends that I knew there.
Yeah.
And there was an uproar. But there was nobody really took them to, they just, it was done, deal, so, and that was it.
and have a seat on the table of chat. This is Talkaoke. At the moment, we're kind of talking. There's a few different things we're talking about. We're kind of talking about, I guess, what is Brexit about? Did we ask the right question about leave or remain, or should it have been about immigration, about the rights of the immigrants, about deregulation, and all these other things? Give us a final thought.
I'll come back soon.
Okay, that seems to be most people's final thought here.
It's not about really over immigrants or anything coming in the country.
Yeah.
It's our kids go for a job at Butlins and they can't get a job in there because they brought the whole team from Poland to do the job. They won't take on the local people, making sure that the working class kids don't get work, can only work in a call centre or to wipe people's bums. Every other job that's going has been given to somebody else from Europe.
Right.
They're doing it on purpose, making sure our kids come out of school and go straight into no work, haven't got any skills for the working environment, and they do it on purpose to keep us down.
Okay, is it about keeping local working class people down? Is that what it's about? Any thoughts on this side? You feel like, okay, come on, what do you think about Brexit? That's what we're talking about at the moment. Did we ask Yvonne's kind of said, did we ask the right question when it comes to Brexit? Is it about immigration? Is it actually about keeping working people down, local working people? So that's what we're talking about now. So, any thoughts on this side? What do you any views on Brexit? Yeah. Oh, sorry. What's that?
I prefer Weetabix myself.
Okay.
I thought, having a little think about kind of the role of work in all those conversations and jobs, because it sort of revolves around that all the time. I guess maybe I would take a slightly different opinion on it, or a different perspective on it, and think about sort of, put another way, like I would vote for a party that promised to abolish work completely, and really start to think about that idea of we're beyond the working society, the kind of Protestant work ethics kind of like not really relevant anymore. How can we sort of like accelerate ourselves into the future?
So you don't believe in work? Is that what you're saying?
I think work is, one of the kind of something that we should try and transcend, and people don't need to be sort of like identifying their entire lives with what they do for a living.
Okay.
Our kind of things like universal basic income that are on the kind of table from Corbyn sort of capture that sort of spirit.
Okay, all right, well that's enough from you, because not because it's not bad ideas, but just because we want to spread it around. Give us a final thought before you go.
Vote for Corbyn.
Okay,
Non-cooperation is the best form of protest, and that's what people need to realise. There doesn't have to be any violence, just the majority of the country not to go to work one day.
Okay. So people should just stop going to work. Okay. We've got a new face at the table. What's your name?
Catherine Doherty.
Catherine?
Doherty.
Okay. We've got, what was it again, sorry? What's your name?
Arthur.
We've got Arthur, and we got Pat, and
David.
And Bob. And we got Andy and Yvonne and Mikey. At the moment we're sort of talking about work, and are we...
This country, the establishments in this country is terrified of France and Germany. Germany, two republics, right? And they know once we're in there, they'll nibble away at the edges, and they know that they couldn't fight it, and they'll take sovereignty. They'll demand sovereignty goes to Europe, and that's what they're terrified of.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter if we have open borders, it doesn't matter if we are part of Europe. It's the establishments in this country knows that it'll be the stamp for them. That'll be the end of it. It won't happen overnight, but it'll be gradual.
Right.
Because
so it's actually the establishment that is worried about losing their power.
Hey, come on, we've got Buckingham Palace, got palaces and all sorts down there.
Is it a threat? Is the EU a threat to Buckingham Palace?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple of subjects on the table right now, and it's kind of this is Talkaoke, so it's up to you to decide where you want to take this. We could talk about this idea of work that Andy's proposed, that do we need to abolish work and forget about work and not define ourselves by work, or do we want to carry on the EU Brexit thing? What is that all about? It's up to Catherine.
Hello, I think everybody should vote for Jeremy Corbyn. The establishment in this country, like my fellow brother here says, is absolutely corrupt.
Yeah.
The royal family is outdated and should be abolished with. We should have a republic state.
Yeah.
a properly democratic society. There is no democracy in this society. Theresa May is worse than Maggie Thatcher. Maggie Thatcher was the dinner snatcher, and Theresa May is the milk snatcher, or the other way around. And
there's a lot of snatching going on.
and everybody should please vote for Corbyn and change this society for good, for the better for the disabled, the vulnerable and the needy, especially the homeless, the asylum seekers and everybody who needs help. Thank you.
All right, so I mean there's a few subjects that touches on, and one is this question of the establishment. We talked a lot. I think the Corbyn thing, it seems like everyone sitting around the table is like a Stonewall Corbyn supporter, so that's not really up for debate. I don't know about you, you've not said your point yet. But there's this question about the establishment, and there's also this question about, I guess, give us a final thought before you go.
Mrs. Thatcher?
Yeah.
She was born with 2 breasts which give children milk. What did she do? She took the milk off the children. A woman who's born, designed by nature to give children milk.
From Thatcher's?
Well, I was born just as the war finished. I got cod liver oil. I got Scots emulsion. I got all the vitamins, all the stuff that was required, so that we could grow strong. We wouldn't have rickets. We wouldn't have that. What does that cow do? A millionairess, a very wealthy woman. She takes milk out of kids' mouths.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what shows you how wicked they are.
Yeah. Okay. So in a way we're still suffering from that. Have you got any views on any of the things that are being said?
Well, I'll state my position. I'm a Republican socialist.
Yeah.
Some advice to my friend here.
Yeah.
Live as long as me and you transcend work anyway.
Yeah. So you've transcended work.
I have transcended work.
So to transcend work is just about living long enough, and I guess that comes back to the whole discussion of the NHS. Okay. I mean, so one of the things we've been talking about as well is this deficit of democracy, and you mentioned the royal family. Is this idea of a royal family actually impeding our democracy?
I think the royal family is outdated. I like the work that Kate, William, Harry and Meghan do. I think they should be the only royal family we have, and we should get rid of the rest.
Okay, so keep the young ones, but the old ones are gone. Okay, so where do we want to go with this discussion? Do we want to talk about how to get to this this world that we want to be, a more caring world, this more socialist world? How do we get there? Is it just simply about voting for Jeremy Corbyn? What's that?
I say that's the first step.
It'll be a good
is to make Corbyn the Prime Minister of this country.
Yeah, so it would be a good start for sure.
I think there'll be thousands, millions of people celebrating because before the war it was a bad place to live here. I was a child and I had rickets.
Yeah.
And I went to a clinic and I sat there with my brother. Yeah. And we waited about 12 hours. There was only one doctor.
Yeah.
And a few days later, my brother got diphtheria and was in the hospital. And then I got scarlet fever.
Right.
And this was the sort of conditions that were there. I also had rickets as a child.
Yeah.
And people were evicted where I live quite daily.
So we've actually come a long way.
It was a terrible society, and now they're trying to get it right back to that. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, do people agree with Bob? Are we sort of going back in that direction where we don't have that basic healthcare, where we don't have, you know, the basic things for all people? Do you think are we actually getting dragged back into that?
We're in great danger of it. Yeah. And poor old Maggie Thatcher started it by bringing about the cult of the individual.
Come and have a seat on the table of the chat. At the moment we're talking about politics and Really? Oh, come and have a seat. I mean, one of the things we're talking about, is there a deficit of democracy? I mean, what's the view from you're from America? So we have got Pat, we've got Catherine. What's it again? Sorry,
David.
David, that's right. And we've got Bob and Andy and Yvonne. What's your name?
Sydney.
And
Maya.
And
Kira.
So one of the things we've been talking about, apparently in the US, you've got to pay for your healthcare. So did this cost you money, this accident, or did you do that here?
I injured my foot while I was at work, so workman's comp covers that.
Okay.
But if I hadn't have, then yes, I would have had to pay for it through our own insurance, and Sept pays.
I mean, one of the things we've been talking about is a lot of people around the table have been complaining that this is in the UK, we don't live in a democratic country. How does it look like from coming here from America? Does it feel like it's a democratic place? Does it feel like does it feel like people get to have their say and stuff like that?
I mean, you guys voted for, Brexit and stuff like that. So, like, I feel like, yes, you do get a say. Although I feel like, I don't know, maybe not as much as we do, but I mean,
one of the things, Yvonne was saying, you were saying about Brexit, that it was too simple a question. Should the question have been more nuanced? It was actually lots of questions. It wasn't just like in or out. It was like, there was questions about immigration, there was questions about the economy, about sovereignty and all these things.
The ruling class in this country are masters at divide and rule with racism and all that. Yeah. In the old days, you had Leo McCree here spoke for the dockers, because one time they used to fight each other about religion, and he said he'd go home with that. Yeah, he said you go home with empty bellies. He said on the 17th of March you marched, on the 12th of July, and he said, well, isn't it about time we got together and fight the bosses who are. One time in the docks there, you had to go down and two things out and you fight to get a job. Yeah. But the thing is, when you speak about democracy, you know what he got? He got 9 months in jail. Right. For saying that. Right. Because in this country, it's a sham about democracy. There's all this with the propaganda and the British media. There's no democracy. If I got out there and started, and Jeremy Corbyn goes the whole hog about socialism, you'll find out where your true democratic country is. Okay. They'll use all the force to get shut them, which they've done throughout the world. Okay. And America, no disrespect to you, America's the only country in the world that's invaded other 47 countries involved, and also the only country in the world that use atomic weapons and nuclear weapons, and Trump is a fascist.
Okay, we'll say, I don't know how you feel about that. If you, we've got a new face on the table anyway. We're going to come to this is Talkaoke. You may not be familiar with it, and you may not be familiar with some of the sectarian history of the Dockers struggle in the 1950s. But we can fill you in on all of these things. But it's kind of up to you where you want to take this conversation. We've got Pat, we've got Catherine, we've got David, we've got Bob. What's your name?
My name's Karen.
Karen, and we got Andy and Yvonne, and what was it? Kira and Sydney and Maya. And I'm Mike here. So yeah, it's kind of up to you where you want to take this discussion. But
I just want to talk about the fascists and the far right and the rising of the far right. Yeah. There was a wonderful man who's now dead, Nelson Mandela, and as people know, he served a long, long time in prison. Yeah. And he was unjustly imprisoned. Yeah. He campaigned for black people. I'm of mixed race. My mother is Irish, my father's West Indian. Yeah. And I believe that now that there's a mixed race person in the monarchy, that maybe things will change. Okay. And I hope she has lovely black children, and that we do have a black society, because you need to stick up for everybody. Okay. All right. So I don't. What's that?
Isn't she? Isn't Meghan American?
Yeah, she's American, I think. Yeah. What do you think of it? Can we just ask you? With Donald Trump got mentioned. There's a lot of criticism got levelled at America from
your fault, is it, love? No. You're not Donald Trump. I'm sure there's a lot of good people there in America.
But with the democracy in America, we have an electoral college system, so some states are worth more votes than others. Yeah. So Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. She had the most votes she had millions more votes than he did, but because of the electoral college, he won. So I don't even know where that stands on the
He technically didn't even win, because the people voted for Hillary.
How do you feel as an American abroad? How do you feel about Donald Trump? Do you feel that he represents you?
It's so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing.
Okay.
We hate him.
All right. Do people come up to you and talk to you about
every taxi ride I get into? They're like, "Who'd you vote for?" And I'm like, "Not Trump." Just to check if I'm a decent person.
All right. Okay.
You've got a constitution in America. Yeah. And the founding fathers, many of them. John Hancock, who signed the American Bill of Independence, he was born here in Liverpool.
Oh, really?
Yes. And and so that's something.
Yeah. What's that?
Founding mothers.
Was that? I mean, yeah. What about the founding mothers? Were there any founding mothers? Was there any founding mothers, or were there just founding fathers?
You know, I'm sure they were, but our school system is not the best, so we don't really learn about them. Okay. So it's kind of.
All right. Well, I mean, that's an interesting point. I mean, it goes. Yeah, I'm going to come to you, Karen. You've not.
Sorry, I've just walked over here. I don't even know what's going on. But it sounds like it's been dead interesting that you've got a lot of history here, and I presume you girls over there are tourists, are you?
Yeah, we're studying abroad for about a semester.
All right, okay. It just sounds like there's been some dead interesting conversations, but people talking about democracy, and you just mentioned about history. And I think what we learn about history, we learn about what the higher echelons want us to learn. We don't learn about working class history or working class struggle. Yeah. And there's a thing on tonight about 47 Labour councillors. Was originally 49, but 2 were killed. Right. One died and one died in a car accident, so there was 47, and they fought in the 80s for a socialist council in this city, right. And the whole of the city is behind them, and there's going to be an unveiling of a shroud for them tonight in the Casa, in Liverpool. But that's part of our history, but you don't see it everywhere. Yeah. Well, there was tens and tens upon thousands of people, ordinary working class people, women with the shopping bags, normally that you don't see, who supported them and filled the streets and demonstrated. The demo today was very small compared to what you would have seen, but again, that's not the history that you get told about. Now we're hopefully going to put that in history, and we need to see it in the museums. So what you get taught in school is what they want you to know.
Karen, what about Yvonne's point about the we hear about the founding fathers but not the founding mothers?
Well, yes, you hear about history, not her story.
Okay.
History.
Okay. Yeah.
We're talking about, you don't hear about women. What about suffragettes?
Okay, so
the suffragettes were feminist movement. We've just been on a march for the women's hospital. It's been a campaign that's been going for 3 years. Yeah. And we've all, in the Merseyside pensioners and other groups, there's been lots of people on the march today. Unfortunately, I couldn't go on the march, but I managed to make a little speech. Yeah. And we need more women, we need power for women, and we need Theresa May out.
Okay. Okay.
I get the Morning Star right.
Yeah.
And
what's the Morning Star?
It's a socialist paper for peace and socialism. It says, it used to be the Daily Worker. Yeah. And you've got to give credit to America at the moment. In McDonald's, they won a big pay rise there. They took on the greatest next to Walmart. Yeah. And also, then he took on about sexual abuse in America. By the McDonald's management, they were the whole lot. And one woman spoke out, and it spread. And as we're talking now in the United States, every part of America, they all down tools in America. Right. Everyone stopped work, the whole lot. Yeah. But did our British media report it? None, not even Channel 4. And then you talk about democracy. Why wouldn't they report that? Okay. Which is very, very important. The first time in the history in the United States where all those women went on strike because they were getting sexually abused by the management in McDonald's and all that. And to take them on, that is taking on. So it's like taking on Walmart.
You got this on the Morning Star, was it?
Yeah, okay. But it's in one of the serious papers. It's not propaganda, it's a fact. Yeah. But then where's your democracy? I know about democracy or that. We had no democracy in the 6 counties where I lived. Yeah. But the democracy you got, who did you go and complain if you got beat up or got thing? To the RUC, to take you inside and maybe kill you. Right, and that was British democracy, and they knew about it in this country. Divide and rule. They tried to divide us, but when people in the my brothers and all that had to come here to get a job because they were nationalists, the whole lot, and they had worked in the tunnels, worked a lot, and that was done to get a job in Harland and Wolff's. Once they found out what religion they are, you'd either go missing or that.
Let me just, I think we need to fill this in for us as well, because there's a lot of references there. We're talking about, this is Pat's from Northern Ireland, where... From Ireland. From Ireland, yes. From 6 counties of Ireland. Can I say the northern bit of Ireland? Is that okay? Anyway.
Which side you're on?
Yeah.
See, I was brought up to think of it as Ulster.
Yeah, okay.
I'm a left-wing Glasgow Rangers supporter.
Okay, all right, well, don't start having a... Anyway, but this is about this kind of. I mean, I guess other people can explain it as well. This is, I guess, this question about divide and rule, and I guess you might be familiar with that in the US.
I've seen a few Labour folk on telly recently saying that actually, if you were to ask not the party politics question of like who would you vote for, but which policies do you agree with?
Yeah.
And everybody agrees with what Jeremy Corbyn's proposing, or not everybody, but a lot of people.
Yeah. You saw him.
He was in the Slavery Museum with us, doing some like.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of Jeremy Corbyn? Did you say hello to him?
We didn't. No, honestly, I did not know who he was before I saw him today, and then someone was like, "Oh, that's Jeremy," and I was like, "Cool."
Do you hear about Jeremy Corbyn in the US?
No.
No. Okay. So I mean, is that?
I guess the American equivalent was Bernie Sanders, was it? So what was how did that work for you? Did you? Was it?
So you're saying Bernie Sanders is kind of like the American Jeremy Corbyn?
And we only heard a small amount about him. So kind of what's the?
He didn't make it past the primaries. There were the primary elections to choose the candidates for each party. I voted for Bernie. Oh, Bernie. And then it was disappointing when he didn't win.
For Americans, he was too like radical for everyone, which he really wasn't. But Americans need helping.
I mean, who was saying that he was too radical? Because I think we're having a similar discussion. You missed that earlier on. That they said that Jeremy Corbyn was too radical, but it seems like everyone around this table. I mean, we are at a demonstration and we're in Liverpool, but nevertheless, everyone around the table seems to be a big fan of Jeremy Corbyn. So who's saying? And he's getting another. Come on, I can give him a round of applause if he wants to. But who is saying that Bernie Sanders is too radical?
So, I mean, all of us are from like the Midwest, and there's a lot of middle working class.
Where is that?
That's the very center.
Give us a name.
So like Chicago, Ohio, Iowa. I feel like a lot of people who are involved in this were upper like middle-aged people who feel like socialism or like democratic socialism, which is what Bernie was for, is a really great concept. But like I know a lot of older people, like our parents' generation, believe that it's like great concepts, but just unrealistic in the society that's been built already, and in such a big country that is also separated and ruled by each individual state, kind of. And so I feel like because there are so many different mindsets throughout the entire US, I feel like a lot of people who are above like young adults and 20-year-olds, they just couldn't see how it would be possible. Yeah.
Okay.
We had a lady before, Julie, who's part of some EU activism, and she was talking about the age to vote being 18 and that it should be 16, and that actually kids in school have learned a lot more about politics and how that all works and have a better grasp of it right now than people who can vote. So the age to vote in America is 18, is it? But you can do loads of more things. Or you can't drink, but you can drive.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you can drink and drive in this country, but.
When you're 16, you can drive.
Okay. So you can drive when you're a bit younger. You can drink when you're a bit older. They've got Bernie Sanders instead of Jeremy Corbyn, but they don't believe. Not you, but people don't believe that Bernie Sanders can work in the US.
Well, young people have all voted for that. Bernie Sanders got all the young people. The same in this country. Jeremy Corbyn might got two grandsons and all the mates. All of them think the world of Jeremy Corbyn. And these are young people.
Okay, so
this is brilliant.
So it's the young people do believe, but the older people don't believe.
Talking about Bernie Sanders, he was the best thing that could have ever happened to America. It's a pity he didn't get in, and I don't know why Americans, probably because you're middle class, we're mostly working class people here. Are you middle class?
I'm not. Oh, do you mean here? I thought you meant.
No, I meant in Liverpool.
Yeah.
The majority of people in Liverpool are working class. I was in a different class structure. I do believe in the class system. I was a psychotherapist, a hypnotherapist and a counsellor, and I had a good job. I became ill and didn't lose my job, but I retired. And I haven't worked for 17 years. But I forgot what I was going to say now. Well, Bernie Sanders, yes. Why are you so afraid of socialism? And Bernie Sanders is a socialist.
Okay, but not you, but you as in
as
all
Americans.
350 million Americans. Why are those 350 million Americans afraid of
The
socialism?
thing is, it's hard to speak for all of America because America is so freaking large.
Yeah.
Like, you could fit so many Englands in America. And so it's hard to, there's just so many people, it's hard to get them focused on one person. And then also a lot of older people, they're very stingy with their money. They don't want to give it away to taxes, even if it's to help other people. And
I think a lot of it is the fear of the unknown as well. I think a lot of people just get very set in their mindsets and aren't open to seeing other options that could be beneficial just because they hear socialism and then think, oh, communism, and think, oh, that's scary, and just make those assumptions.
Okay, so it's about the connection with communism and...
They've been indoctrinated so much, aren't they? The whole society indoctrination. I can't even if I can say it. The word, from the beginning. I mean, look at young people now. I fear for them. Love Island, Big Brother crap. They're not. They're putting them into. This is how you've got to look. This is it. More people have got mental health problems, anorexia, and everything else at this particular stage because they focus on looking like that one, them frigging Kardashians, and it's brainwashing them into what's really going on in the world. And you too can look like this. You know, they need to look out what's important for young people to getting a job, having a future, having education, you know, having a home to live in. I've got my three kids live at home with me. They're not little kids, they're adults. They're all on 0 hours contract. Well, one's just finished uni, the other one's, she's doing uni now. I'm having to keep them. And we hear the news, saying unemployment figures are going down in Britain. No, they're frigging not. Mine aren't on the list because they're all living at home with me and they can't sign on. They can't sign on because they're accepting 0 hour contracts. They might work one day, they might not work for the other days. And I go, aren't you entitled to dole? Why have I got to keep you? One's 32, one's 26 and one's 22. They're not showing on the figures, you know, but they're being indoctrinated. And a lot of Americans, it's all about, well, we've got our house now, we've got our mortgage, we don't want to lose it, we're comfortable, we're doing all right, thank you very much. But no, there's like with any, right across the world of society, you have rich people who, it's like for the many, not for the few. The wealth is held by those at the top. They control the media, they control everything else that's fed down, and to keep the masses happy. And what's keeping young people happy now is, oh, as long as I look good and as long as I can. And it's all false. It's leading to false. No one really looks like that. You haven't got the money to look like that, but it keeps them worrying about what's really happening in the world.
Okay.
I'd say that it does feel like younger people or that younger generation are more attached to kind of like participation in their lives, whether that's kind of like through reality TV or whatever, and also just those sort of the surveys that have been done to say, well, actually, if only young people had voted in America, then Bernie Sanders might have got in. Same thing with Corbyn. So it's kind of socialism, just a case of waiting for like this, the older guard to drop off, and the young people that are, being so kind of
they might be
not being
watching
part
Love
of it.
Island, but they're switched on, and we just need to wait for them to kind of the young people to take over. That's basically your point. Hang on now. I've got to come to Catherine, and I'll come to you.
You talked about how people look. I've got an eating disorder, and it's not because of the way I look. I've had a long life mental health issue because of my past. I am a victim. I didn't really want to talk about that. However, I want to talk about young people. I don't have any children myself, but I would have loved some. Young people today are very disadvantaged. Like you said, the working economy is the gig economy. I kind of lost me thread now. The gig economy. No jobs. No proper wages. Look at McDonald's. We campaigned as Merseyside pensioners for McDonald's staff to get £10 an hour. I went in personally and spoke to the boss and said, you should be ashamed of yourself. Your people are working hard, and what are you doing? You are probably on a lot more than £10 an hour. He shook his head, but I doubt very much that he isn't on more than £10 an hour.
So the young people are getting more and more disadvantaged.
I just like people to remember that the older generation built socialism in this country. We built the 1945 Labour government, which did more for this country than any other government's ever done. And they shot themselves in the foot. We made people so much better off that they rejected socialism once they became better off.
Okay, interesting point. Well, let's ask some of the younger people around the table. Do you think that we just need to... Oh, hang on a second. Yeah.
It was just on that point where you're going, oh, well, we're blaming older people. Older people are more right-wing and they're holding on to the money. Well, I think you just got to look around this table at some of the pensioners, and there's a film just come out. I missed the premiere of it last night, actually, by 2 local filmmakers called Pensioners United. And I've watched some of the stuff. They've done a film on austerity as well. And look at the older people who were on these marches. And as that man says, yes, there's a lot of socialists who are older people as well. So you can't just say, that generalise like we can't generalise of everyone's middle class, everyone's this. Every country has got different, and every society. Yes, Liverpool is a really working class place, and you can't just blame the young people or blame the older people. We all have different views. So, by the way, anorexia or anything else, I know that it is to do with a mental health issue, to do with lots of other things, not just to do with how you look. I appreciate that. I'm a social worker. I work with many people who've been abused and everything in this society, and I, know what brings that. And I know that suicide is on the rise because of austerity as well as everything else. And there's massive cuts to CAMS, child and adolescent mental health services. Again, part of Tory cuts, part of NHS cuts. Yes, mental health is on the rise. Suicide is on the rise. In fact, you know what gets me? I was saying this the other day. Right, we now have to work till we're friggin' 67. My mother only worked till 60 because we're all living longer. And you think, okay, we're living longer. Well, it come out last week, we're no longer living longer in this country. The mortality rate is dropping. Well, okay, can I friggin' retire early and take my money? No, they'll probably have me work until I drop.
Okay. Well, Karen, there's so many points there. It's kind of up to you which one you want to take, and there's so many. There's a question about... Come and get involved in this if you want to. This is Talkaoke Pop-Up Talk Show. At the moment we're talking about young people and old people, and are they getting together to create a new socialist utopia? David?
Well, just 2 things. One, we can't denigrate the older age group. I'm 82 and I'm still a left-wing socialist, fairly well-off civil service pensioner. Not my fault. But we can't denigrate young people either, because I don't know if you remember at the Scottish referendum, which unfortunately went the wrong way, young people of 16 voted, and they were the most articulate voters of the whole lot. So they know what they're doing, The other thing is, I'm here for the conference, and I just hope to God that we reinstate Clause 4 and get back to socialism.
Okay. Can you just tell us what Clause 4 is? Because probably not everyone around the table knows what that is.
When the Labour Party started, Clause 4 was the one which said that the means of production and distribution should be in the hands of the workers.
Right. Okay.
Well, when Blair got elected, one of the first things he done was knocked in the head, Clause 4.
Okay.
So it no longer was a Labour Party.
Okay. All right. So we're talking about politics, and it's kind of, there's so many things you brought up. What's that?
Sorry, I've got to go.
Okay, give us the final thought. It's a very free form. This is Talkaoke. I've got some cards somewhere. It's just a free form talk show. But give us a final thought before you go.
I just want to say this has been really interesting. It's great to listen to interesting people, and these girls to get round the table with a load of local scousers, well, and obviously different people. You're getting a bit of a different view because we've just had a demo, but Liverpool people are fighters. We're fighters for justice. We always have been. We are an international city that struggled and struggled. It was one of the most important ports in the world that was built on slavery because of where we are located. We have a massive multicultural background of Irish because the people come over here from the starvation. We've got the oldest Chinese community in Europe. We've got the first mosque in the whole of this country, and we've got one of the oldest black populations as well. So we've got a big mix of people. The city was built on the port, and then when the port started declining, there was nothing else left here, which is why we are people who struggled and why we are working class fighters. No one has given us anything. You have had to fight for it. And why Liverpool people, they always say how good they all look, because when you took from them not much education, there was no jobs around and everything, when the port declined, they had the pride. They had the looks and they had the pride, and they kept that pride with them. So anyway, thanks for the opportunity to talk. Sorry I talk too much and go off on a tangent. But nice to meet everyone, by the way, and enjoy your time in Liverpool. All right, see you,
Karen. Thank you, Karen. Yeah, come on, let's get a round of applause. And you know, it's an insight into Liverpool. I'm not from Liverpool, as you probably can tell, but it's always great to come here because people have got a lot to say.
Generation.
Yeah.
My father was one of the Windrush generation.
Yeah.
The way these people were treated was absolutely disgusting. He came over here. He was invited over here. From Barbados, Bridgetown, Lawrence Crawford.
Yeah.
He came over here as a merchant seaman.
Yeah.
He was in the war. He fought for this country. And recently, with Brexit and everything, I agree with Brexit. I think we should come out.
Right.
The worst thing we ever did was join the common market. However, back to the Windrush generation, the way they were treated was absolutely appalling.
Yeah.
And the way some people in the 70s, when Enoch Powell became in power, my father was detained and was sent back to Barbados because he didn't have a British passport.
Right.
He had a Barbadian passport.
Right.
And I think that is utterly deplorable.
Okay, so I mean, these are some of the things I guess that go on. You're hearing a lot about recent British history, and you know, some of the, in a way, some of the things are the more shameful things really about this country that probably you don't get in the tourist brochures or in the university prospectuses.
We've got a student here, and he's a bit. He doesn't say much, you know, Bob, but he can do all poems and poetry and that, and he's very, you know. Give us one of your poems, Bob. He's Salthouse.
Okay, I mean,
one of these, what I do like is throwing a bomb is wrong, but dropping a bomb is good. So terror, no need to add, depends on who's wearing the hood.
Yeah, he's got loads of that.
Okay. Thanks for a round of applause for that one. Okay, well, where do we want to go with this conversation? What do we want to talk about? Do we want to talk? I mean, Karen mentioned quite a lot about this kind of, you know, this pressure, the anxiety, you know, the mental health side. We could talk about that. We could talk about, I don't know, this question about, do we have to, we want. People a lot have been talking today about being united, but then we also generalise about people as well when they're united together. We talk about that. But you were going to say something, Andy.
I was just thinking that, I mean, we almost got into a conversation about what Liverpool is then, and kind of like Liverpool being a working class city and kind of like having that. But I mean, actually, you know, relatively at the moment, Liverpool's a fairly affluent sort of city in the north. You know, I live in Bradford. I know what a kind of working class city as it is now works.
Liverpool's not too rich.
Well, and you've got tourists that are here to kind of be here for university. It's doing all right, really, isn't it? Kind of like in terms of kind of.
You don't have tourists in Bradford. No. Okay.
Just something small that I've noticed since being here. We're staying in London for the semester. We're just here for the Slavery Museum because we're taking a slave narratives class. And I just think one big difference that I've noticed is here you're a lot more willing to admit your mistakes. In the Slavery Museum, it had a bunch of things about like this is how we're still currently benefiting from this slave labor, and it had a thing, look out this window, like slave ports where like this was used to transport slaves, and we fixed slave ships here. And in America, I feel like we just like to forget about our mistakes and forget the part we played in some things. We're taught that Christopher Columbus discovered America, and that some textbooks even say that the Native Americans just like moved over to give them some space, when that's not what happened. There was so much massacre. So that's just a little thing I've noticed between the two countries.
That you know, that question of like, you know, being critical about your own country is bigger maybe here in you're agreeing as well.
I think America, whenever you try to question America, it's, oh, you're not patriotic. Like, people, you're disrespecting the troops who fought for your freedoms whenever you try to criticize America, when I feel like it's important to criticize your country when it's not holding up to the ideals it set for itself.
Okay. All right. Yep.
I'd like to talk about the Slavery Museum. Have you been to the Slavery Museum? You just come. Okay, so I didn't quite catch what you said. There should never, ever have been slaves. It is a disgusting a piece of history that people should be ashamed about. And for I'm of mixed race, but for white people primarily, like in South Africa, I know people in South Africa who had maids who were black, and the maid would not sit on the step with the white person who employed her because she felt her brothers and sisters who were also black would reject her, and that is propaganda. That is absolutely deplorable.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
A little bit of poetry then.
Yeah.
The prince is in the parlour, eating bread and honey. The queen is in the counting house, counting all our money.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much for that. So, I don't know, I sort of feel like...
A white man went through Africa with a Bible in his hand. The black man's got the Bible and the white man's got his land.
Okay, interesting point there. Okay, I feel like we kind of, we need to probably... Come and have a seat, can we get involved in this? We're about to wrap this up, so this could be like your final chance, unless you want to come to Constellations, which is in the Baltic Triangle. We're going to do a late night session from 9 o'clock through... Yeah, with some booze.
Go to the Casa.
To the what?
The Casa, I'll tell you.
No, I mean...
Because they're having a thing there for the 47 councillors.
When is that?
It's tonight. It's,
what time?
7 o'clock, yeah.
I could squeeze it in, I suppose. We could do that. Yeah.
The Casa's a club.
Yeah.
And it's dedicated to the men who fought the Spanish Civil War.
Right. Okay.
Names there.
Okay, so yeah, we might be popping at the Casa. We'll see what subjects in negotiations, but maybe it's time. I feel it's time possibly to get final thoughts for this session, because we've talked about a lot. We started off talking about. You may not have been aware, but there was actually a demonstration because they're closing down the hospital, the Liverpool Women's Hospital. So a lot of the talk earlier on was about the NHS, the value of the NHS. Oops.
Well done.
A clanger there. It was about democracy. It was about whether views actually get heard, the people's views actually get heard. What was that question?
I was just curious why they were closing down the women's hospital in the first place.
Okay, why were they? Can someone say why they were closing it down? You talked about that.
Yeah. They want to close the women's hospital because they want to move it to the new Royal. Carillion, the people that built the Royal, are corrupt. Everybody knows that they've been into different...
Didn't they went bankrupt?
They went bankrupt, yes. Yeah. They've been doing different buildings. They've done prisons, hospitals, schools, and the hospital in Liverpool, the Royal, is a good hospital. The new Royal is falling down. The 7th floor is uninhabitable. The reason why they wanted to move the women's hospital to the Royal is crazy. There's women there having babies, there's women there having breast examinations. Women should be private in that sort of environment. They don't want men there.
What was the official reason they gave to move it
What's
to
the official reason?
Intensive care and how there isn't an intensive care unit on site at the current women's hospital, so they were given a clinical reason even though the actual intensive care unit's only a mile away, so it is functioning perfectly well.
That hospital is one of the finest in Europe, and it's political. Carillion are corrupt, and the hospital that they're going to build will never get built. It's going to be pulled down at that because it's riddled with asbestosis. And they've also found out that where the Grenfell disaster there, the same thing when they were building the cladding, and what is happening in this country that we live in?
Yeah.
The top people are rotten to the core, and they are doing all for profit. That's all they're interested in, making money and exploiting people. Yeah. And when you say about Liverpool's great, but you go to the outlying areas and you see people there, they haven't done any work. I live in a poor area, one of the poorest in Liverpool, in Scotty Road. And round there we got an MP. Her name is Louise Element, right? And if you say anything about Israel or say what's happening there, you're condemned as a terrorist. Everybody's a terrorist if you speak out against the Zionists. Right. And she's never, I've been there 6 years, and we've never seen her come round that area. Okay. And there's people disabled there, and it's very, very poor. And those people are the affluents of Liverpool. The affluents in this city and all this is getting, but who's getting the money?
It's all from the centre?
It's from the top.
Okay.
It's not getting distribution of wealth.
Okay.
What Karl Marx talked about, the distribution of wealth, has never been introduced. And it's the first time in the history of you've got Jeremy Corbyn talking about that. and speaking about that he'll give a better and make a better world for us all, irrespective of race, colour or creed.
Yeah.
And why does the ruling class hate him so much?
Okay.
Why?
Okay, so there's some. I hope that answers the question about the hospital. I'm just doing the sum up now. So when we were talking about the NHS, we were talking about this question about the media and how they distort things, and we're also talking about the future of socialism. We were talking about a little bit about the EU and Brexit, and we were talking. I guess then we moved on to talking about we talked about America when you guys turned up, and you know the rest. So I guess it's now time for the final thoughts. I mean, we've been through most of the people here have been here most of the time. So yeah, let's just get a final thought from everyone. What's your final thought? David.
Thank you for the opportunity. And I think before I go, I'd like to say to these young ladies, you're actually very welcome here. That's really all I can say at the moment.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I should say thanks very much, David, and you're welcome here, but you're also welcome tonight when we go to Constellations, and you're all welcome there to come and carry on this conversation. Catherine.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk also. I'd just like to mention before I go about the mental health issue.
Yeah.
People say there is no stigma. I am a person who has a mental health issue. I have an illness called schizoaffective disorder, which is like manic depression symptoms and schizophrenic symptoms. I hear voices and things. I'm on an injection that keeps me sane. Not sane all the time. However, people say it's out there and that people are more accepting. They're not. I can tell you that they're not more accepting. I'm judged, the way I dress, the way I act, I'm judged by society, not just me, but other people who have mental health issues. And we should campaign like we did for the Women's Hospital to have more mental health places, because they're shutting them down and that they're going in for community care. I've worked in community care, and the community care today is not as good as it used to be.
Just this question, what do you think the way to get this question of mental health talked about more and accepted more? What's the route to that, as far as you're concerned?
The route is acceptance and non-judgmental attitudes. There are people in this society who are very judgmental. Unfortunately, I find this is not an insult. Unfortunately, I find the American people very judgmental.
Really?
I've been to America several times. I've been to Boston. I've been to Florida. I've been to Philadelphia.
You haven't been to Chicago?
No, I haven't been to Chicago. It seems like a very middle class area. I'm not into people who are middle class because...
Okay. All right, final thought. Any final thoughts? Bob, you can come and have a final thought if you want to, although you've only just arrived. But final thought?
Well, I would say welcome to the American ladies, and I hope they have a good stay. And I think Jimmy Carter was the best president you ever had. During his term, no American soldiers were killed.
Okay, all right, okay. Final thoughts?
It's just been really interesting to listen to all your perspectives. We don't know a lot about UK politics whatsoever. And just on the NHS thing, I have so many friends who get sick and they're like, well, I don't have money to go to the doctor, so they just stay sick. So I wish America could adopt a sort of national healthcare service as well.
And it's interesting because a lot of your politics and your issues with your own country are almost exactly the same as America's. So it's just interesting to listen to because we're not that different.
So parallel worlds in a way.
Yeah.
Okay, final thought?
I guess there's just so much stigma around all the politics in the US right now, and I guess I appreciate all of the different opinions, and I think it's really wonderful, but just to remember not to make generalized assumptions on certain classes. And I guess I kind of did that a little earlier with talking about the older generation. But I think it's really cool how many parallels there are.
Sometimes we just see America and we don't see the individual people that are there and their sort of thoughts and their views. Is that what it's about, do you think?
I don't really know. I feel like I haven't interacted with enough Europeans to kind of get that perspective. I don't know. I feel like we kind of do that with everyone,
do you think we get, as British people, do we have a sort of fair view of what America's like? Do we understand America?
I think
think it's so hard because social media is so. I don't necessarily think so because I feel like social media is so complete. Yeah, it's just so completely one way. You either get a really negative, and I guess just because our politics are so divided right now.
So you get the extremes essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of people that fall in between whose voices aren't heard because of how extreme our parties are right now.
Right. And I guess the social media is amplifying that as well. Final thought, Yvonne?
Come to Constellations at 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay, you'll be there, will you?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's been a fantastic session to hear from the people of Liverpool about sort of identifying definitely a lot of talk about, well, really decent analysis of the problems in sort of current society.
Yeah.
And maybe sort of this evening we'll also get to talk about sort of proposed solutions and kind of possibilities and futures as well.
Okay, so you'd like to talk about the future? Is that what you're saying?
I think the evening would be a good time to talk about the future, wouldn't it?
Okay, so maybe we'll move that on. So let me just get Pat's final thought. Yeah.
I hope that we get the foundations, that I live long enough to see the foundation for true socialism, you know, because then that we haven't even got that. The nearest we got with the health service, and we haven't even got communism in the world. That will come about maybe in about 50 years through communism. But I'm not
you
scared.
Think that's the way ahead?
In the final analysis, yeah, because the one thing about what's happening now in this world, throughout the world, capitalism is not working for anybody. It's working for the ruling class. And this country is class-ridden. Mother England is a class country.
Yeah.
It's riddled more class than ever, than any other country probably, you know. And there's people here living out in absolute dire poverty in Liverpool, and the rents where we live, I get a little bit of help and live in sheltered accommodation, but I tell you what, the rents are so colossal, and it's the thing. And they talk about London prices. The property's gone up here to sky high. How can anybody afford that in Liverpool or anywhere? Unless they get a house here in Liverpool, you'd need to be earning about £50,000.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And unless we get shut at the whole bloody lot of them, you know.
Okay. Final thought. Catherine?
Okay, I'd like to talk about the homeless, and yet again, there are lots of homeless people in Liverpool, as well as Bradford and other large cities like London. The homeless people, a lot of them have got mental health issues, a lot of them have got alcohol issues, a lot of them have got drug issues, which is no fault of their own. And a lot of people are scandalised because of these issues. And if people only opened their minds and their hearts and had a look at the backgrounds of these people, they would know where the root lies. And the root lies in breakdown of family organisation. It's rooted in... sorry, I'm losing my thread. Just give me a moment. Sorry.
So you're talking about the homeless and understanding the homeless.
I'm not homeless, but understanding the homeless, understanding the people who are disabled, disadvantaged, refugees.
Is it about just like a greater compassion in a way that we?
Well, there is no compassion these days. People don't care enough about each other.
Yeah.
People walk away. People don't. If there was somebody on the floor who'd collapsed, people would think, oh, he or she is drunk. That might not necessarily be the case.
Yeah.
There have been times. Sorry. They could. Thank you for saying that. That's very judgmental of you. Yes, they could be on spice.
Yeah.
But there again, you're judging him or her.
You don't know. You don't know what.
You don't know what the people's background is. You don't know what they've been through. You don't know why they're there. There are people who had good jobs, families, and they've gone down the road of despair through no fault of their own, and that is because of this country not caring.
Okay, that's a really good point to end it on. Thanks very much.